In this week's Shoeshine, NBR's list editor Maria Slade reflects on the number of times the Bay of Islands came up in the property holdings of the country's wealthiest people. Maria joins me now, and this is a who's who of the country's uber wealthy, isn't it?
It is, Dita. When we were going through the research this year, I personally was quite amazed to see how many of them own pads up in the Bay of Islands. Like, for example, there is one whole stretch of coast east of Russell, where if your name is Marsfin Douglas or Christopher Mace or Trevor Farmer, you basically own the entire coast. But another thing I sort of thought about was, well, is this a good thing, a bad thing, or an indifferent thing? That there are all these incredibly well-heeled people in this one small area owning quite a lot of land. And it was actually kind of hard to find anyone to say anything bad about it. Because the thing is, they're very wealthy. They look after their land. They're great conservationists, generally speaking, and, you know, the locals kind of view them in a generally positive light.
Do they ever, or have we unearthed any evidence that the tangata whenua perhaps think differently about their holdings?
I haven't. I didn't specifically look into that side of things. Having said that, there's an initiative called the Elliott Bay Conservation Project, which tangata whenua are involved with. And this is quite a unique example of well-heeled people doing good things in this area. So Elliott Bay was owned by the Elliott family for about 90 years. It's quite a big chunk of farmland, but it also has natural bush on it and a beach. And so Christopher Mace, the aforementioned, and his long-term business colleague Jeff Ricketts have been a driving force in raising $8 million to buy this land. And they've now achieved it. The deal has been done, and it will be returned to the conservation estate. And the key thing with this piece of land is that it lies between a couple of the really good walks up there. So you've got like the Cape Brett walk in the north and then the Russell Forest walk in the south. And their aim is to create a great walk for Northland, which there currently isn't one. And so they've got very good plans for this land, and you know, it really is a shining example of doing good for the area.
That is amazing. When I look at these names, it seems to me like old money rather than new money. Is Northland a hot spot of property buying?
It's interesting. Yeah, some of them have owned property up there a long time. I think the Marsfins, for example, Peter Marsfin, the industrialist, he's been there a long time. The Douglas family, I think, have owned a place up there for quite a while, Douglas Pharmaceuticals. And they're people who have a great affection for the area. Jeff Douglas, for example, is president of the Swordfish Club. He's a great game fisherman. So they do have a real affinity with the area, and it's only an hour's helicopter flight from Auckland, Dita.
Yeah.
So it's very accessible for the who's who of Auckland.
That's right. I was taken aback, as I always am, when I realised what an involvement Owen Glenn still has, and I should say Sir Owen Glenn has in New Zealand. Can you tell us a little bit about what he's got up there?
He has got an 89-hectare property called Wiroa Station, which is on the Purirua Peninsula. Now, people may know this for the Marsden Cross, the historic Marsden Cross site. It's a bit east of Kerikeri. It's quite a remote bit of land, but he is developing this kind of farm park, if you like, where he will sell off 21 subdivisions, and he's got a winery there and so forth. And his long-time associate, Bill Burney, the investment banker, he's already done a big development up there. There's one called Mataka. Just to the east of Owen Glenn's one. And that was a very similar thing, where there's about 30 very exclusive homes. And there's a working farm, but also a conservation estate with a Kiwi population. So, you know, they're doing their bit to try and preserve the native flora and fauna. It's a beautiful area, and they are trying to do good things in terms of the environment.
We talk about good and bad, whether it's good or bad. And, obviously, as you're saying, these guys sort of rub up against the locals in the supermarkets and so forth, and they're involved in these conservation efforts. But is there a problem with these people owning such a large tract of really prime land?
Yes, you wouldn't buy anything on the coast in the Bay of Islands for anything less than 7 figures now. I mean, it's pricey, but it's not super pricey. That kind of amazed me. You can, one property I saw that sold a couple of months ago, not far from Glenn's property, 20 hectares for a bit over $3 million.
Right.
So again, it's quite remote, and who knows what state that land is in. But in the grand scheme of things, it's kind of affordable. But apparently, it's becoming more and more discovered. And like Bill Burney was telling me, he knows a lot of Americans that are looking down here if they're able to navigate the regulatory environment, and also returning Kiwis. So more and more people are looking to places like the Bay of Islands as a bit of a haven, and property prices are only going to go one way. So I guess that's not good news for the locals.
Craig Heatley has quite the acquisition up there.
He has an island, yes, and the Mowbrays also have a place in the Bay of Islands. Yeah, it's definitely a who's who, because it is just such a beautiful area. If you had the money, why wouldn't you, kind of thing. But I guess the good news is that, you might have a lot to say about these people and their business lives, but it would seem in their far north playground, they are playing nicely and doing their bit. And I guess that's a good thing.
I do wonder about the infrastructure up there, though. I mean, yes, these great walks and so forth might be in good condition, but the townships which abut these large properties are not in great condition. So, is there a sort of something to be done there?
Interestingly, I was talking to the Deputy Mayor, Anne Court, and she was driving or trying to talk to me as she drove, and it kept dropping out, and she sort of quipped, if you can get one of these wealthy people to do something about this, the Wi-Fi up here, that would be great.
Yes.
So, that's an issue. There's definitely an issue because it is still quite a remote area. It's a good 3 or 4 hours drive from Auckland. So, it faces those kinds of problems as a lot of, regional New Zealand does.
Right. And just finally, in your putting together of the list, did you see other areas of New Zealand that are commensurate with Northland in terms of being popular with the uber wealthy?
Well, the other big one's Queenstown, of course.
Of course.
And we've seen all the problems that have happened down there, huge property prices being inflated by wealthy people buying it up, and the workers, the staff they need in the tourism industry not being able to afford to live there, that kind of issue. Doesn't seem to be quite the issue in the Bay of Islands, I guess just because the development hasn't happened to quite the same scale. But, in my view, that could be a problem they might be facing down the track.
Yeah, absolutely. Maria, thank you very much.
Thank you.